My mother looked right through me at the military checkpoint and informed the guard that I was merely a nobody carrying her bags. She had no idea that 30 years of playing invisible was about to explode. The young guard pointed his flashlight at my official card, saw the golden rank seal, and froze in absolute horror. He slammed his heels together and screamed into his radio that a top-ranking naval flag officer was at the gate. Growing up in a household ruled by cold silence taught me how to disappear long before I ever joined the military. My father was a heavy industrial metal welder who believed that only physical steel held any true worth in this life. When I was 10 years old, I won first place at the state science competition for building a naval warship model out of discarded copper. My father barely glanced at my trophy before walking away. Without uttering a single word of praise, Mom showered all her affection onto my younger brother Gavin, celebrating every minor athletic participation, ribbon as if he had conquered the entire world. When my father passed away years later, Gavin wept loudly for the crowd while I sat alone managing funeral costs, organizing paperwork, and writing handwritten thank you notes for every guest. The next morning, my mother casually swept all 60 of my completed thank you notes into the garbage, insisting that nobody cared about such useless politeness. When I earned a full scholarship to the Naval Academy after months of exhausting physical training, my mother simply sneered at the acceptance letter. She claimed that the military would only teach me how to staple papers in some dark basement forever. My brother snickered from the couch, mocking my achievement while glued to his video games. I chose to swallow my hurt, lock my pride deep inside a bag, and embark on a long military career focused on explosive ordnance disposal. For 2 decades, I served in high-risk combat zones across the globe, disarming dangerous underwater explosives in complete secrecy. While I risked my life, my family treated me as an endless bank account. My mother demanded funds to cover her failed business investments, while Gavin expected me to finance his expensive suits and failed corporate ventures. I quietly wired my specialized military hazard pay to them without ever receiving a single word of gratitude. They spent over $400,000 of my blood money while remaining completely convinced that I was just a low-level clerk answering phones. During a family holiday dinner, Gavin sat at the head of the table boasting to everyone about his imaginary Pentagon contacts. He claimed that Admiral Vance, the commander running naval operations, personally called him every week for defense advice. Gavin had no idea that Admiral Vance was actually my direct subordinate who reported to me every single morning. My mother beamed with pride, telling the entire table that Gavin was doing crucial work while I was probably still cleaning bathrooms in some military building. She even suggested that Gavin might pull some strings to land me a basic janitorial job. The whole room laughed at me, completely unaware that I commanded the very forces keeping the nation safe. I kept my face calm, swallowed my pride once again, and recorded every single lie into my personal mental files for the coming storm. The final breaking point arrived months later, when I spotted an official envelope sticking out of the kitchen trash can at the house of my mother. It was an invitation addressed to Rear Admiral Samantha, naming me as the guest of honor for the annual military gala. My mother snatched the paper, insisting it was a fake scam before tossing it away. She then ordered me to wear a plain dark dress and carry her purse at that event. On the night of the event, I put on a simple dark dress and tucked my military credential card deep into my handbag. As my mother drove up to the secure checkpoint, she pushed her pass against the window and dismissed me as a useless extra passenger. I remained silent, slid my official card to the guard, and watched his eyes widen in complete shock as he realized my true authority. He immediately called for an emergency protocol escort. Master Sergeant Silas, a veteran I had saved years ago during an intense battle, stepped out of the station and rendered a crisp military salute. He addressed me as Admiral Samantha and announced to the entire area that the guest of honor had finally arrived. My mother froze with her hands glued to the steering wheel, her face turning pale as paper. In the back seat, Gavin choked on his breath, completely unable to comprehend that his sister was a high-ranking commander. I stepped out of the vehicle and walked into the grand ballroom to a standing ovation from hundreds of high-ranking officers. A gigantic photograph of me in full military uniform was projected onto the main screen, declaring my rank and honors. I looked down from the podium and saw my mother and Gavin sitting at a tiny table in the far back corner. They sat trembling in total silence, completely terrified as I delivered a powerful speech about sacrifice, duty, and hidden strength. After the ceremony, my longtime military colleague, Colonel Rebecca, confronted me in a quiet hallway with fierce honesty. She asked how much longer I would allow my own family to treat me like trash while using me as a personal cash machine. Her sharp words shattered 30 years of self-deception, helping me realize that allowing people to walk over me was not humility, but self-destruction. That night, I ordered a full termination of all financial support to my family, effective immediately. I logged into my online banking accounts and canceled every recurring transfer that had funded their extravagant lifestyle. Within hours, the financial foundation of my family crumbled into complete ruin. The credit cards of my mother were declined in front of her high society friends, and the business partners of Gavin discovered his entire defense career was a massive lie. When the wife of Gavin called me crying for help, I calmly told her that only liars fear the truth before ending the call forever. A week later, my mother marched directly into my military office, shouting and attempting to manipulate me with deep emotional guilt. She accused me of destroying the family and claimed my deceased father would be ashamed of my cold behavior. I remained seated behind my executive desk, listening patiently to her dramatic outbursts without making a sound. Once she finally ran out of breath, I opened my secure drawer and pulled out my official Silver Star Award document, placing it directly in front of her. My mother read the citation detailing my heroic actions under enemy fire, realizing for the very first time that I had risked my life to earn the money she spent so carelessly. She collapsed into a chair and wept genuine tears of deep shame, unable to defend her past behavior any longer. A month later, she invited me to her house to show me an old wooden toolbox that belonged to my father. Inside, wrapped in soft fabric, were yellowed newspaper clippings of my achievements and a handcrafted metal anchor. My father had secretly cherished my success all along, keeping those items hidden in his private box until his final days. My mother looked up at me with tears streaming down her face and asked why I had permitted her to treat me like nothing for so long. I replied that unconditional sacrifice without personal boundaries only breeds entitlement and cruelty. Both of us realized that true love never requires a person to erase their own worth so someone else can shine bright. During our next family gathering, the old wall that once held all the participation ribbons of Gavin was completely clear. Gavin stood on a wooden chair, carefully mounting my official military commissions and the handcrafted metal anchor side by side. Uncle Ray, Aunt Donna, and all the relatives watched in silent respect, never making another joke about my career. My mother stood up before the meal, announced my full naval title to everyone, and publicly asked the entire family to honor my true service. Standing before the mirror in my quarters, I reflected on the ultimate lesson of my long journey. People may respect your position because of rules, but real personal connection only happens when others choose to see your true value. Self-respect is born this exact moment you stop defending the lies of other people and stand firm in your own truth. I spent decades suffering in silence, but I finally stepped out of the shadows and reclaimed the respect I always deserved.